Hello, and welcome. This is a guide primarily covering the targeting mechanics of Silvina and Vala. I've seen from various online platforms that almost nobody understands these, especially Vala's, so I hope to clear up the confusion once and for all. But let's start with Silvina. She has a targeting priority that is very thematic when you consider her kit, and that her normal attacks become moral assaults. You'll see why in a second. As we all know, Silvina's primary target is the symmetrical position on the enemy side. So let's suppose that you have a Silvina on your team whose primary target is this red tile on the enemy side. What happens when this red tile is unoccupied? Most people think that she simply prefers to target towards the rear, that she wants to look backwards for her target, and that is not entirely correct. She does look backwards initially, so if her number one target priority is this red tile, she will look to this tile if one is empty, but if tile number 2 is also empty, she will go clockwise around the yellow locus of tiles until she finds a target. So her third priority will be on this tile, that tile, and so on. If the entire locus of yellow tiles are also empty, she will move on to the next locus in the exact same fashion. So she will go to the green tiles and look for a target there, there, and then there, so on and so forth, until she finds an occupied tile. Now let's look at an example. This is not the best place. Let's look here. Okay, this is good.
You just made the best choice.
Now, we can see in this example that in her current position she is targeting Brian. Her primary target is actually the tile behind Brian. We can see that by counting from the back. So from this tile she is 2 tiles up. Let's go to the back tile on the enemy side and count 2 tiles up. That's her primary target, the tile behind Brian. But in this case she finds Brian as a target. Who is she going to target when I swap her position with Brutus? I'm going to give a couple seconds, but pause the video if you need more time. Now, by symmetry, you would think that if I swap the positions like this, she should target Odie. But that's not correct. She actually targets Atalanta. The reason for this is because in this case, when she targets the tile behind Brian, she finds it empty, she looks backwards, finds that empty, and keeps going clockwise until she finds Brian. In this case, in a similar fashion, she targets the tile behind Odie, finds that empty, looks backwards, and starts going clockwise, immediately finds Atalanta, and therefore targets Atalanta first. So that's how Silvina targets. Fairly simple. We'll move on to Vala. This is going to be confusing, but it seems that that's normal. I've seen multiple content creators who at some point in their videos have demonstrated that they don't really understand Vala's targeting mechanics. One example that comes to mind is this creator called Puzzle. I saw him move his Vala around blindly trying to see if she retargets, and he puts out a lot of PvP oriented videos, so he knows for the most part what he's doing. But in order to understand Vala, we need to build some foundations. First of all, we need to understand positioning order in AFK Journey, as well as how distance loci works. So in any map, the tile order goes from front to back. On your side, left to right. Front to back, left to right. Here I am using Analytica's Arena 1 template as an example, which is the standard map for AFK stages. And you'll see that these tiles are numbered in reverse order, i.e. rearmost first, And you'll see that if you draw sequential transverse lines passing through the centers of each hexagon. So 13 is your frontmost tile, followed by 12, 11, so on. You will find that number 1 is your rearmost position. And if there's a hero on this tile, that will be the hero that receives, for example, the Enlightening spell or Cascade spell artifact buff, as long as that hero is not untargetable at the start of battle. Moving on to distance loci, we actually saw this earlier in the video when we were talking about Silvina, and this can also be useful in trying to figure out, for example, if figuring out ahead of time if Smokey can actually reach enemies with his blue aura, with his EX. The game makes it look like a circle, and that looks very misleading when it involves enemies at the fringe. So let's take a look at this hypothetical AFK stage, where Smokey is on the frontmost tile of your side. You have Freyasto here, you have other backline heroes, but for pedagogical reasons, we are going to assume that the backline heroes don't include Cassidy, Aaron, or any hero with any displacement effects. So Smokey is all on his own, and we want to figure out if he can catch all these enemies with his EX. Again, pause the video if you want to figure this out yourself. It's easy to see that Laika is exactly 4 tiles away from Smokey, so she will be in the blue aura. Let's try to find the rest of this 4-tile locus. The trick is to draw radial lines from your origin tile, perpendicularly bisecting its edges, and then join the destination tiles with straight lines, like that. So radial, perpendicular bisector, joined with straight lines. And in this way, you will find the entire 4-tile locus for his blue EX aura. It turns out that when you see the blue circle in game, any hero at Atalanta and Coco's positions will look like they're kind of inside it, but they're really not. In this case, though, specifically, there is a neat resolution, because Coco and Atalanta both have a 4-tile range. So if you find their loci, it turns out that at the start of battle, none of your heroes are in them. So none of your heroes are within their attack range, and therefore they will both move forward 1 tile, as will your Freyasto and his illusion. They will move forward as well. And at that point, the enemies may target either Smokey or one of the tanks. It doesn't really matter. The point is that all 5 enemies are now in Smokey's 4-tile locus. So when his EX kicks in, it's going to catch everyone. So with this understanding, let's go back to Vala. The targeting mechanics are very poorly understood. There is this video by a creator called, I think, Harvest, and he does come a little close to the right answer. So I recommend you can watch his video as well. I'd say he's maybe 50% there. Now he says in a video that Vala will look for the farthest enemies, and we all know that. He also says that if there are multiple enemies equally far away, she will prefer to target leftwards by the player's point of view.
What kind of treasure
Kinda like this.
awaits us today?
So these 3 enemies at the back all seem to be equally far away from my Vala. She will look towards the left. This seems right. It will seem right most of the time, but only when that's typically only when Vala is centralized somewhat on the map. These can lead to some really wrong answers if she is not. So in this case, for example, you can see that she's targeting Tamisha, who is clearly at the back, but I can keep her targeted on Tamisha, very surprisingly, by moving here and there. And you wouldn't think that this should be true. It certainly looks like Rowan is much farther from Vala than Tamisha is. So the correct answer is this. It's somewhat convoluted. The attacking Vala will target the rearmost enemy within her father's occupied locus, whereas the defending Vala will target the frontmost enemy within her father's occupied locus. So let's look at their Vala and see where this locus is. We're going to draw a line outwards radially. So let's just go straight forward from where she is. That's 1 tile, 2 tiles, 3 tiles, 4 tiles, 5 tiles, 6 tiles. So this tile here is 6 away from where she is. Let's take a different direction. Let's go this way. 1 tile, 2 tiles, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that tile is 6 tiles away from Vala. If we connect these 2 tiles with a straight line, you'll see that it passes through all these 3 tiles where Rowan, Cecilia, and Tamisha are. So as far as their Vala is concerned, contrary to what it may look from your point of view, Rowan, Cecilia, and Vala and Tamisha, Rowan, Cecilia, and Tamisha are all 6 tiles away from her. So between these 3 heroes, since she is the defending Vala, she will look for the frontmost. And we've talked about how to find the order of priority, and that's going to be Tamisha. So Tamisha is going to be her target. We can make it Cecilia by moving Tamisha over here. And it certainly looks like Tamisha should be the farthest, but she's going to target Cecilia. Very surprising results. Now, on the other hand, the attacking Vala will look for the rearmost enemy in the father's occupied locus. So let's take this position over here, okay, and find that locus. 1 tile, 2 tiles, 3, 4, 5. Cassidy is 5 tiles away. Okay, let's keep going 1 tile farther back. So that's the tile behind Cassidy is 6 tiles away from my Vala. Okay, and let's take this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's kind of skewed, but just kind of follow. So that's 6 tiles away. That's the tile somewhere here, if that existed, would be 6 tiles away. Draw a straight line connecting the 2. Hewin is 6 tiles away from Vala. They look equidistant, but they're not. Cassidy is 5 tiles. Hewin is 5 tiles. And if you did it in the other direction, Faye is also 6 tiles away. So both Faye and Hewin are 6 tiles away. They're both on the farthest occupied locus from my Vala, and therefore she will look for the rearmost out of these 2, which will be Faye. Now their side of the arena is flipped, so it still goes from front to back, but now you gotta count from right to left. So this is gonna be tile number 1. Silvina is on tile 2, Granny's on 3, 4, 5, 6, Hewin's on 7, Cassidy's on 8, Faye's on 9, and Faye is the rearmost. So Vala's gonna target Faye. This difference is actually rather impactful in PvP. It puts Vala at a disadvantage on defense. So on top of the fact that it's easy to control who Vala targets with the positioning advantage that you have on attack, she is also naturally disadvantaged because she prefers to look forward when she's on defense. So it makes it even easier to lock her onto a frontline tank. And one particularly good example is this map. Now this map is a very common Supreme Arena map, and a lot of people like to do this. Right, they'll put Vala on the buff tile, giving her extra attack speed and extra life drain, and protect her by linking her to a Thorn. So when I do this, okay, any of these tiles within the main bulk are naturally going to be closer to my Vala than these 2 tiles are. So if any heroes are on these two tiles, they will naturally become my Vala's target, and vice versa. So if they have a Vala on this tile, she will see these two heroes as being the farthest away on her farthest occupied locus. But being the defending Vala, my Vala will prefer to look for the frontmost hero, which in a mirror match would be their Thorin. My Vala will target their Thorin, whereas the attacking Vala, theirs, will prefer to look for the rearmost hero, which is my Vala. So you see the discrepancy here. My Vala will be shooting their Thorin all the way until she gets killed because she's directly targeted by their Vala. It looks like a mirror match, it's not. The defending Vala prefers to look for the frontmost on her farthest occupied locus. The attacking Vala prefers to look for the rearmost. This is a very important difference. It may look like a trivial one, it's a very important difference. So for this reason, try not to put Vala on defense. She, as strong as she is, as much as she may solo carry your fights on attack, she is rather bad on defense. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you for watching, and happy AFK. May the RNG be ever in your favor.